So I find the American Girl doll brand fascinating. I made a whole video looking at the history of the brand, but some people might consider me a fake fan because I never read the books and I've never been that into the characters. But I was into the dolls and crafting clothes and furniture for them, playing the computer games, activity books. That's what I was into. But I do sometimes feel like a fraud for not knowing about the characters. So today I thought I'd explore one of the historical characters, Samantha Parkington. Why Samantha? Well, for one, I have her doll. I got her off eBay. And because she's one of the 3 original characters that the brand launched with. So I think she's a good starting point. Samantha has always seemed like a fan favorite, like she's the it girl of American Girl. And I'd love to know why. My theory is that she's just the prettiest. She has all these fancy girly clothes and her collection feels very elegant. Obviously, dolls are going to be more popular if people like the way they look. But when dolls have characters and books attached, that's going to be a factor. So I think we should look at some of her collection and her books. And I will decide whether or not I like Samantha and if I'm happy that I bought this doll. So American Girl launched in 1986 with 3 dolls, Kirsten Larson, Molly McIntyre, and Samantha Parkington. They are 18-inch luxury dolls, each inspired by a period in American history. Samantha represents 1904 and the progressive era in America. Think women's suffrage, labor rights, Theodore Roosevelt, factories, automobiles, the Gibson girl, big hats. This time is also called the Edwardian era, but that term is more in reference to the United Kingdom because of King Edward. Samantha Parkington is an orphan living with her grandmary in the fictional town of New Bedford, New York. One of my grandmothers also goes by Grandmary, so that really stuck out to me as a kid. Grandmary is wealthy and lives in a nice house with servants, and Samantha is being raised to be a proper young lady. The Samantha doll has light skin, her face is the classic American Girl face sculpt. She has brown hair with bangs and brown eyes, and the outfit that she came in was a checkered drop-waist dress, black stockings, and black Mary Janes. I think she looks very pretty. In American Girl lingo, this default outfit is called a meet outfit because it's what the doll is wearing when you meet her. Meet like nice to meet you, not meet like Lady Gaga VMA dress. The Samantha doll came bundled with her first book, Meet Samantha. Pre-2014, American Girl dolls would each have an accompanying central series of 6 books, and the first book would always be Meet Character Name. In this case, Meet Samantha. This would be an introduction to the character and their time period, and this book would be included when you bought the doll. So let's read it. Meet Samantha was written by Susan S. Adler. Mysteriously, she wrote the first 2 Samantha books and has no other writing credits. What happened? We don't know. For all of Samantha's books, the original illustrations were done by Nancy Niles, and they were redone by Dan Andresen in 1998. My copies have the Nancy Niles illustrations. Thank you, Dad, for buying these for me for this video. However, I did not want to scan my own books. I did that for the Disney Fairy Books video. Did not enjoy it. So I'm using scans of the illustrations from the Tumblr blog AG Heaven. Thank you for your service. Their scans are the Dan Andresen ones, just so you know which ones I'm showing on screen. We open on Samantha falling out of a tree that she was climbing, and her bratty little neighbor, Eddie Ryland, is like, "You're so dumb you can't even climb a tree. You probably think 3 times 4 is 12. And Samantha's like, "It is 12. Then she threatens him. "Eddie," she said, "if you don't get out of here right now, I will take your entire beetle collection from behind the shed and I'll put it in the offering plate at church on Sunday." She paused to make sure he was listening. "And I'll tell your mother you did it," which works, and he runs away. But Samantha has ripped her stockings, so she runs up to see Jessie, who is the house's seamstress. Jessie seems to be mildly amused by Samantha's antics and always willing to help her out. Also, Jessie is a black woman, which is relevant later. The 2 of them have a conversation where we get a lot of exposition. Samantha's Uncle Guard has a friend named Cornelia, and Samantha thinks they're going to get married. But Samantha didn't think Cornelia was right for Uncle Guard. She thought someone like Alice Roosevelt, the president's daughter, would be better. Alice Roosevelt did the most exciting things, and the newspapers were always talking about her. Alice Roosevelt tangent. Alice was President Theodore Roosevelt's eldest daughter. She was 17 when he was inaugurated, and she was basically a socialite celebrity. She was nicknamed Princess Alice. She smoked cigarettes in public, rode in cars with men, stayed out late partying, kept a pet snake named Emily Spinach in the White House, and placed bets with a bookie. A Paris newspaper noted that in 15 months, Alice had attended 407 dinners, 350 balls, and 300 parties. The president said of her, "I can either run the country or I can attend to Alice, but I cannot possibly do both." In 1905, when she was 21, she led a diplomatic tour of Asia with the Secretary of War, William Howard Taft, who went on to be the president. On the tour's cruise to Japan, she jumped into the ship's swimming pool fully clothed. In 1906, she got married and cut the wedding cake with a sword. So she was certainly doing lots of exciting things. Jesse's husband, Lincoln, is a porter on a train that ran to New Orleans. I looked into that. Apparently, after the Civil War, the Pullman Railroad Company sought out former slaves to work on sleeper cars. They carried baggage and served passengers. Pullman porters were almost exclusively black and have been widely credited with contributing to the development of the black middle class in America, as well as the first all-black union in 1925. And of course, the pay and the hours and the working conditions sound abysmal. Just thought that was interesting. Then Samantha goes to spend her hour with Grandmary. Samantha is working on an embroidery sampler that says actions speak louder than words. She asks Grandmary if she can have a doll that she saw in the store. She suggests earning the money for the doll by selling boomerangs, which Grandmary is appalled by. "Samantha," Grandmary was shocked, "a lady does not earn money." Samantha had known there wasn't much hope, but she added very quietly, "Cornelia says a woman should be able to earn money. She says women shouldn't have to depend on men for everything. She says, 'Cornelia has a great many newfangled notions,'" announced Grandmary. "She should keep them to herself." Grandmary says Samantha can earn the doll by doing well at her tasks. Then Uncle Guard and Cornelia show up in an automobile. 1904 would have been the beginning of cars in America. For reference, the Ford Model T was introduced in 1908, so it's still mostly horse carriages on the road. Grandmary is horrified by the car, but Uncle Guard takes Samantha for a ride. Eddie Ryland yells over the noise that there is a girl named Nellie coming to live at his house. Samantha doesn't believe him, but the next day, Samantha is eating gingerbread in the backyard, and she sees a girl through the hole in the hedge. Nellie says that she's working for the Rylands. Samantha offers her gingerbread and then helps her hang up the laundry so they can sit and talk. "My father works in a factory in the city, and my mother does washing. But there's 3 of us children, you see, and it's not enough." She added quietly, "There wasn't enough food, and there wasn't enough coal." Samantha's eyes were wide with disbelief. She was good at imagining castles and jungles and sailing ships, but she had never imagined cold and hunger. "You mean your parents sent you away? But that's awful." "Oh no, it's better here, it really is," said Nellie. "The Rylands pay my family $1 a week for the work I do. That's not as much as I earn in the factory, but in the factory I had to work every day but Sunday until dark. And the air was so hot and dusty I started coughing a lot. That's why my parents let me come here. The air is good, and I don't have to work so long, and I get food." Nellie has never been to school because she has to work, so Samantha says that they can meet every day, and she'll teach her everything. A lot of confidence from Samantha. Eddie runs over and threatens to tell on them, but Samantha says she'll stuff his pocket knife full of taffy, so he leaves. The next day, Samantha is working on her embroidery with Grandmary. Jessie comes in and says that she won't be coming back, and Grandmary thanks her for her service. Meanwhile, Samantha is freaking out, like, why is Jessie leaving? What's going on? And Grandmary says, "A young lady must not ask questions of her elders. This is Jessie's business." Samantha asks Mrs. Hawkins, the cook, and Mr. Hawkins, the butler, and they both tell her not to worry, but she's too young to understand. Samantha is annoyed, and she goes up to her bedroom. And the doll she wanted is sitting on her bed. Samantha names the doll Lydia after her mother. The next day, Samantha brings the doll to show to Nellie. Nellie has never owned a doll before. Samantha speculates as to why Jessie left, and Nellie suggests that she's having a baby. Samantha was startled. Why would she do that? Nellie shrugged. Lots of people do. They just like babies. Samantha had to agree. Jessie loves babies. Samantha wants to go to Jessie's house to ask her husband Lincoln what's going on. And Nellie knows where Jessie lives. A woman across the street from Jessie makes an herb tea that cures headaches. One day, Mrs. Ryland wanted some, so she sent me home with Jessie to get it. I can show you. We needed some justification as to how this child knows the location of this seamstress. So Samantha and Nellie agree to go in the middle of the night. They go that night, and Samantha is surprised by the sad-looking houses. Nellie explains that this is the colored part of town, and Jessie has to live here. Samantha was smart about so many things that Nellie was always surprised what her friend didn't know, which I think is a good quote to describe Samantha in general. They make it to the house, and they're too afraid to knock on the door. So Nellie climbs on Samantha's back to look in the window, and then Lincoln opens the door on them. And Jessie's like, what in the world? Samantha explains that they came by themselves to find out what happened to her. And Jessie's like, I'm sorry, I didn't think you'd be worried about me. Here, come see my baby Nathaniel. Then Lincoln takes Samantha and Nellie home, so no one gets in trouble. Days later, Eddie Ryland tells Samantha that Nellie is going away. Mrs. Ryland says Nellie isn't strong enough, so she's sending her back to the city. Mother says next time we'll get an immigrant woman who can last longer. Then Samantha shoves Eddie's chewing gum into his hair. I was like, chewing gum? But apparently modern flavored chewing gum was developed in the 1860s. So, Samantha goes inside the Rylands' house, and Nellie is in the kitchen. They're both upset and don't want to say goodbye to each other. Samantha runs to ask the cook, Mrs. Hawkins, for food to give to Nellie. They prepare a basket of food for Nellie's family, and Samantha gives it to her and also gives Nellie her doll. Later, Uncle Gard and Cornelia are having tea with Grandmary, and Samantha's upset working on embroidery in the corner. She tells Grandmary that she knows that Jessie had a baby, and Grandmary admits that she should have told Samantha what was happening. Samantha asks if Jessie can come back and take care of the baby here, and Grandmary says Jessie can if she wants. Then Grandmary asks where Samantha's doll is, and Samantha says she lost it, which makes Grandmary mad. But then Uncle Gard jumps in and he's like, well, Mrs. Hawkins told me that Samantha gave the doll to Nellie, which Grandmary is surprised and mildly amused by. Samantha asks if they can help Nellie's family, and Grandmary says that they can find a way. The end. Then the books always end with a historical context section called Looking Back. For this book, it talks about the proper world that Samantha lived in and the difficult lives of the servants who made that possible. It also mentions the women's movement and changing technology. These historical sections are short. This one is 6 pages, and a lot of it is pictures. But what I really enjoyed while reading this book was looking up things mentioned in passing, like the Pullman porters. So I feel like the historical section could have been way longer. My mom said that these books should just have a ton of footnotes. I think part of it is I like history more than I like historical fiction. Like, just give me a bunch of Wikipedia articles about 1904 and I'll be happy. Then Samantha's second book is Samantha Learns a Lesson, written by Susan S. Adler. The Learns a Lesson books are school-themed, and there was a tie-in school collection for the doll. The book opens with Samantha at school, Miss Crampton's Academy for Girls. There's a girl in her class named Edith who's a know-it-all. Edith was smart, but not as smart as she thought she was. Probably no one on Earth was as smart as Edith Edelton thought she was. Samantha and her friends have lunch outside, but Samantha is distracted thinking about Nellie. She hasn't seen Nellie since Nellie was sent back to the city. She's worried about Nellie and her family sharing a small room with never enough food or coal. But that weekend, the maid, Elsa, tells Samantha that she has company waiting in the parlor, which is unusual, and she goes downstairs and it's Nellie. Oh, Nellie, it's really you! You're all right! Samantha stood back and looked at her friend. Are you back at the Rylands? She asked. Oh no, it's much better, Nellie said. Her eyes were sparkling. It was your grandmother, Samantha. She did it. She talked to Mrs. Van Sicklen, and Mrs. Van Sicklen hired my mother and father. Pa will be her driver. He'll take care of the horses in the garden. Ma will cook and clean and do laundry, and Bridget and Jenny and I will help. Nellie bounced with excitement. She looked as if she had a grand surprise. And guess what, Samantha? We get to live there, all of us, we really do, in the rooms over the carriage house. Isn't that wonderful? And we get another bombshell. Mrs. Van Sicklen says that Nellie can go to school. So on Monday morning, Samantha walks Nellie and her two little sisters to the public school. Nellie will be in 2nd grade because she can read a little bit, and her sisters, Bridget and Jenny, will be in 1st grade. Samantha goes to her school and is worried all day about Nellie. After school, she goes to the public school to meet with Nellie and her sisters. Bridget and Jenny had a great day, but Nellie isn't there. The girls find her hiding by a bush, crying. Nellie says that she doesn't want to go to school anymore. She explains that the other kids laughed at her for being older and only in 2nd grade, and called her rag bag and dummy, and the teacher got mad at her when she didn't know an answer. Samantha is pissed that people were mean to her friend. She tells Nellie to take her sisters home, and then Samantha goes back to Miss Crampton's academy. She explains Nellie's situation to her teacher, Miss Stevens, and Samantha says that she wants to help teach Nellie. I could teach her, but I don't know what she needs to learn. She looked at Miss Stevens hopefully. Can you help us? Miss Stevens looked thoughtful. You are a very good friend, Samantha. I think you will be a good teacher, too. Come sit down. So Miss Stevens takes some 2nd grade books and marks the parts that Nellie should learn first. Samantha runs home and asks Grandmary if she can run a school for Nellie. Grandmary is amused and she agrees. So Samantha goes to Nellie and asks her to come over. Nellie is ironing clothes and says she'll be done in half an hour. Samantha waits, and then Nellie comes over holding Lydia, the doll Samantha gave her. I only wanted to mention that because they say that the doll is worn because Nellie hugs it so much, and there's a line I think is sweet. Samantha looked at Lydia and knew she had been loved. Samantha leads Nellie up to the attic where she has set up a blackboard and the books. They practice reading, writing, and arithmetic. Nellie is good at math because she had to do the shopping for the household and counted pennies for food. The next day at Samantha's school, the teacher announces that there's going to be a speaking contest. Our own academy has been asked to send 2 girls to take part. In order to choose those 2 girls, we shall have a contest of our own 3 weeks from today. Each of you will prepare and present a speech. Miss Stevens and I shall choose the best speeches. The topic of the contest is Progress in America. Samantha walks home with Nellie, and the know-it-all girl, Edith, is like, Samantha Parkington, does your grandmother know that you're walking home with servant girls? I know my mother doesn't want me to spend time with them. But then, I guess some people just aren't very particular. And Samantha's like, she's even worse than Eddie Ryland. At dinner, Samantha asks Grandmary about the interaction. Grandmary, why isn't Edith Edelton allowed to play with Nellie? Samantha asked. Grandmary looked surprised. Why, Samantha, she said, Edith is a young lady. Samantha thought that was ridiculous. But all she said was, you let me play with Nellie. You are helping Nellie, said Grandmary, not playing with her. There is a difference. Samantha was quiet. She didn't like the difference. Then Samantha starts asking everyone what they think is the best example of progress in America. And we get a list of inventions. Grandmary says the telephone. Uncle Gard says electric lights and the automobile. Mrs. Hawkins says the gas stove. And Mr. Hawkins says factories. Later, when Samantha is teaching Nellie, she goes downstairs for more pencils, and she overhears Grandmary talking to Mrs. Ryland, Eddie's mother, and Mrs. Edelton, Edith's mother. It's funny that all the bully kids have E names. And the ladies are complaining to Grandmary. Imagine bringing that whole ragged family to live right here, right in our neighborhood. I just don't know what got into Mrs. Van Sicklen. And Grandmary's like, well, it was my idea. Later, Samantha's school is going to pick the 2 girls for the speech contest. So Samantha gives her speech in front of the class. Her speech is about factories and how they allow for many things to be made very quickly. She's chosen for the contest, as well as Edith. Later, when Samantha is teaching Nellie, Nellie asks to hear Samantha's speech. Nellie says that the speech sounds nice, but isn't true. She explains what it was like working in a factory. They had to work 12 hours a day, winding thread onto spools. They couldn't wear shoes because they had to climb the machines to change out the spools. The machines could break your hands or rip out your hair. They paid us $1.80 a week. She looks straight at her friend. That's why thread is so cheap. Samantha is horrified. The speech contest is held in the Opera House. Everyone gives their speeches about technological advancements. And then Samantha goes up to give her speech, but she's changed it. Now it's about how factories are dangerous for children. And I believe Americans want to be good. I believe we want to be kind. And if we are kind, I believe we will take care of the children. Then we can truly be proud of our factories and our progress. And then she gets lots of applause and wins first place. Which, would she have won for that? I feel like people wouldn't have liked that. It was such a bummer. I know there was some super influential writing about labor rights at this time. The poem The Chimney Sweeper by William Blake and the book The Jungle by Upton St. Clair. Those both come to mind. But I don't think that's the vibe for a children's contest about progress in America. It's like if I was asked to give a speech about how generative AI is revolutionizing the world, and I said it was revolutionizing the world because of its climate impact, wasting electricity and water to create mediocre content trained on stolen assets. I don't think I would win that speech contest. It's not what the judges want to hear. The author could have made it that Samantha didn't win the contest, but was proud that she stuck to her morals. But instead she wins, and she and Nellie celebrate by drinking lemonade in the attic. And Nellie says that she's been moved up to 3rd grade. The end. The looking back section compares private academies like Samantha's to public schools. Then the doll got a collection of school items that tied in with the book. Books 2 through 6 of the central series would always have corresponding items for the dolls, a new outfit and some accessories. Book 1 doesn't have that because the doll itself is considered the tie-in for Book 1. For Samantha Learns a Lesson, she has a gray dress with white buttons down the front. This was called her Buster Brown dress, which confused me because it is obviously gray, but I looked into it and Buster Brown was a newspaper comic character that debuted in 1902. He became the mascot of the Brown Shoe Company, and his clothes were used to describe a style of boy's suit, and Samantha is wearing a dress version of that. In an early concept art of Samantha, she is wearing this outfit. This collection also had school supplies and Samantha's lunchbox, which includes her gingerbread. You can tell that the point of the American Girl brand was making history accessible to little girls. This whole book and collection is just, this is what school was like. You know school, right? The 3rd book is Samantha's Surprise, written by Maxine Rose Scher. The Surprise books are holiday themed, and there was a tie-in Christmas collection for the doll. The book opens with Samantha getting an invitation to a Christmas party from her friend Ida. The 2 girls discuss what they want for Christmas, and Samantha says that she wants this doll that she saw in the toy store. So they go to the toy store to look at it through the window. Samantha hasn't asked Grandmary for the doll because she gave her last doll to Nellie, so she feels weird asking for another doll. Samantha comes home and she asks Mrs. Hawkins if they can make a 2-foot-tall gingerbread house. And Miss Hawkins is like, goodness, well, with a lot of ingredients and some luck, I guess we can make that happen. Mrs. Hawkins does not get paid enough for this. Then Samantha goes to her room and looks at all of the Christmas presents she's made. A pincushion for Jessie and a handwritten book for her baby, a cape for Nellie to put on her doll, a cufflink box for Uncle Guard that she glued a bunch of paper scraps to, like decoupage, and a rose petal sachet so Grandmary can scent her handkerchiefs. I researched it. Apparently in Victorian times it was common to add fragrance to handkerchiefs or clothing. Florals and other botanicals, so plants, were common. Lavender and violet were popular scents. Cornelia is described as always smelling like violets. But around the turn of the century, there was a massive breakthrough in perfume with the rise of synthetics. Before, fragrances were all essential oils and extracts, but now there were chemical compounds being used, which made perfumes cheaper and more complex smelling. And the use of animal scents like musk, civet, and ambergris were on the rise, instead of just botanicals. Some perfume houses from around this time include Floris, Penhalion, Coty, and Guerlain. And I got very sidetracked looking into Guerlain's popular fragrance, Jicky, from 1889. Jicky was apparently the nickname of Guerlain's nephew and also his wife. Weird. It is still produced today, but I didn't see an option to buy it on Guerlain's website. When I searched it up, it took me to the Singapore version of the website, so I don't know what's going on there. But I had a lot of fun reading the Fragrantica reviews of Jicky. Fragrantica is a fragrance review website, and there seems to be a lot of mixed opinions on Jicky. I think because the funky civet note is polarizing, and the wear time on the perfume is apparently not amazing. I'm just very into fragrance. I find it fascinating. I have in my Google Docs a chaotic document where I have perfumes I've tried and wish listed with the notes bullet pointed below and my review of them if I've tried them. Scent is just so complicated because it's not just personal preference, it's also the chemical makeup of the perfume and your skin chemistry. A perfume is going to smell different on different people, so you really need to wear it yourself to see if you like it, which is why I'm so excited that this portion of the video is sponsored by Scentbird. Scentbird is a monthly fragrance subscription service that allows you to try tons of designer and niche fragrances, so you can sample and experiment and figure out what you like. You get a 30-day supply of the fragrance you pick, so you can really wear it and see if you like it. It comes in this glass vial that goes in this magnetic case that locks, which is amazing because I have had a perfume sample leak before, and now the inside of my vanity permanently smells like vanilla. I am a vanilla girl, so this month I tried Skylar Vanilla Sky, which I think is a good introductory sweet vanilla with like a coffee note. Not a bitter, earthy coffee, but like a milky coffee. I don't drink coffee. Is that anything? There is a floral note that really comes through on me, which I was not expecting. Scentbird gives you a card with the main notes on it. But I am a nerd, so I went to go look up the full list of notes, because perfumes usually have a ton of notes, even if you can't smell most of them. And jasmine is one of the middle notes. Aren't you very impressed that I figured that out? I also tried the 7 Virtues Amber Vanilla, which I love. It's not a very sweet vanilla. It's not foody or edible. There's musk and amber to it, so it's very warm and cozy. There's a term in fragrance called a skin scent, which is supposed to be subtle and like a second skin. This is kind of like the vanilla version of that. And if you are not a fragrance nerd like me, Scentbird has a quiz that can help point you in the right direction of a scent you might like. If you're interested in trying Scentbird, scan the QR code on the screen or use the link in the description. Use code SarahSarif to get 55% off for your first month, which would be $8, and it's less than $17 after that. Can't believe I'm a code. Back to the book. After Samantha looks at the presents she's made, Jessie comes in to do a fitting of Samantha's new Christmas dress. Then Samantha goes down to have tea with Grandmary. Grandmary tells her that Cornelia and Uncle Gard are coming to stay with them for Christmas, and Grandmary says she's fine with Samantha going to Ida's party. Samantha is about to ask for the doll for Christmas, but then she gets too nervous. Nellie comes over, and Samantha shows her the presents she made, and they brainstorm what Samantha should get Cornelia for Christmas, but nothing seems special enough. Later, Samantha goes down to decorate for Christmas. She has a bunch of handmade decorations. But Hawkins, the butler, says that Grandmary has specific decorations in mind since Cornelia is coming. He asks Samantha to stay out of the way. Samantha puts up some of her paper snowflakes anyway, but gets scolded by the maid. Then Samantha goes to talk to Mrs. Hawkins about the gingerbread house, but she's told that there won't be time to make one this year. Then Grandmary tells Samantha that because of when Gard and Cornelia are set to arrive, Samantha can't go to Ida's party. So at this point, Samantha is pissed that Cornelia has ruined Christmas. Then Gard and Cornelia arrive, and they go sledding with Samantha. And Samantha likes that Cornelia is a lady who's willing to have fun. Then they go shopping, and Cornelia sees the doll in the toy store and says she looks beautiful. And Samantha's like, that's a woman with good taste. They're going to go home, and Samantha says she'll walk home by herself. And she goes back to the candy store to buy the truffles that Cornelia had been admiring. The next day, Samantha and Cornelia make a gingerbread house. Then Samantha and Uncle Gard go chop down a Christmas tree. The next day is Christmas, and they exchange presents. Samantha gets a fancy sewing kit from Grandmary, a music box from Uncle Gard, and Cornelia got her the doll from the toy store. Samantha gives out her presents, but she gives the chocolates to Uncle Gard and the cufflink box to Cornelia. She wanted Cornelia to have the most handmade special present. And then Uncle Gard gives Cornelia an engagement ring. The wedding will be in June, and Samantha will be her bridesmaid. The end. The looking back section talks about Christmas in 1904. Then the doll got a holiday collection. There is a red holiday dress, a music box, and her new doll. There is also a real gingerbread house kit. I would argue it barely matters that this book is set in 1904. It's just that very classic kids trope of, this person is changing and ruining everything. Oh wait, no they're not. So it felt a little boring and not super historical. Well, except for my extracurricular research into Jicky. There were a few other things that Samantha was released with in 1986. First is her meat accessories. These included a burgundy hat, a heart-shaped locket brooch, a pink purse, an Indian head penny, and an embroidered handkerchief. She also had a bedtime collection. This included a nightgown, her bed, nighttime accessories, and her storage trunk. There were also some dress-like-your-doll outfits so you could match with her. Then, in 1987, we got Samantha's next book, Happy Birthday, Samantha, written by the icon Valerie Tripp. She's friends with American Girl founder Pleasant Rowland, and Valerie Tripp is the most prolific author of American Girl books. This book is birthday-themed, obviously, and there was a tie-in birthday collection for the doll. Trivia! The first several American Girls all have spring birthdays because the birthday books always take place in spring. Zodiac people, feel free to have fun with that. This book starts on the morning of Samantha's birthday. Cornelia and Gard have gotten married, and her young twin sisters are visiting Grandmary from New York. The twins are named Agnes and Agatha, and they are Samantha's age. So quite a big age difference between the twins and Cornelia. They are very high energy and get into a lot of mischief. They give Samantha roses that they cut from a bush outside and wrapped in lace cut from a petticoat. And they encourage Samantha not to wear her long underwear, even though wearing it is one of Grandmary's rules. They all have breakfast, and the twins say Samantha should have little cakes and ice cream put into ice cream molds. And the cook, Mrs. Hawkins, is like, I've never done that before, but I guess so, sure. When they're making the ice cream, Eddie Ryland wants to help. So what are you ninnies doing today? He went on. Nothing, said all three girls quickly. But just at that moment, Hawkins appeared with the freezer. I know, you're making ice cream, said Eddie. I know everything about ice cream. I'll help. No, said the girls in one voice. You just go away, Eddie, Agatha ordered. Who's gonna make me? Eddie challenged. I'll make you, Agatha began. And Agatha is about to fight him. But Samantha knows that Grandmary's biggest rule is that girls don't fight, so Samantha lets Eddie help to de-escalate the situation. I looked into ice cream to see if there was anything interesting, and I learned about a woman named Agnes Marshall, who was an English chef and businesswoman in the 1880s and 90s. She had a lot of different ice cream-related inventions and recipes, including for the ice cream cone. She was referred to as the Queen of Ices, and she died in 1905, which is when this book is set. Then it's time for Samantha's birthday party. Her friends come over, and it's a little awkward because they're all trying to be proper young ladies. Samantha opens her presents, and she gets a teddy bear from the twins. Then Gard and Cornelia arrive, and they brought their new puppy, named Jip. They tell the girls to keep an eye on him, but he grabs Samantha's new teddy bear and runs off. They're able to get Jip back, but now Eddie Ryland has the teddy bear. In exchange for the bear, he wants ice cream and to play with the dog. But instead, Agatha tackles him and takes the bear. Later, the girls all try the ice cream, but Eddie added salt to it while Mrs. Hawkins wasn't looking, and now it's ruined. Cornelia suggests that Samantha come visit New York to make up for her spoiled party. So Samantha and Grandmary both visit Gard and Cornelia in New York. They see a group of suffragists. Apparently, suffragist was the preferred American term, whereas suffragette was the preferred British term. So they see a group of suffragists in a park, and Grandmary doesn't approve. They think women should be able to vote, so they get together and make a ruckus about changing the laws. She sat up very straight. It's all just newfangled notions. When Grandmary says she doesn't approve of suffragists, Cornelia is shocked. Gard changes the subject by giving Samantha her present, which is a doll carriage. Agnes and Agatha suggest taking the carriage to the park and bringing Jip with them too. And they have to promise to keep Jip on his leash. But when Jip starts pulling on the leash, Agatha has to carry him. She quickly gets tired, and so she puts Jip in the doll carriage with the leash wrapped around the handles. Jip, of course, immediately gets free and runs away, and now these three children are chasing a dog through New York, and they end up at the suffragist meeting in the park, a different park than the park we started out at. And the twins are like, oh no, Cornelia's gonna see us. And Samantha's like, Cornelia's here? Jip has jumped into a fountain and the girls are trying to lure him out when the suffragist speaker starts talking, and it's Cornelia. At the sound of her voice, Jip runs over to her, so Cornelia just gives her speech with Jip in her arms. Samantha and the twins stay and apologize to Cornelia. Then they all have to go to the ice cream parlor to meet Grandmary, and they don't have time to get cleaned up. Samantha is explaining to Grandmary what happened and why she's a mess, but is hesitant to say that Cornelia was speaking at a suffragist meeting. But Grandmary says she knows because she saw the speech. When she was on her way to the ice cream parlor, she heard Cornelia and stayed to listen. And that speech was enough for Grandmary to change her mind, as she is now pro-women's suffrage. The end. Then the looking back section is about childhood, because birthdays, I guess, even though it could have been about women's suffrage. Then for the doll, there was quite a big birthday collection. She got a pink and white striped dress with a lacy pinafore and a wicker table and chair set. American Girl did that for the birthday collections. I guess birthdays are worthy of furniture. There's lemonade and treats to go with the table, and there's also the doll carriage and the teddy bear. Hot take, these middle books are kind of boring. Oh no, the ice cream is salty, the dog ran away. Give me a Nellie update. Then in 1988, we get 2 more books. The first one was Samantha Saves the Day, written by Valerie Tripp. This is a summer book with a tie-in summer collection. Grandmary has a summer home at Piney Point, and everyone is coming to stay there. Samantha, Grandmary, Garden Cornelia, Agnes and Agatha, the servants, and Admiral Archibald Bemis. He is Grandmary's friend from England who visits every summer. Mary, you look as lovely as the day I met you, more than 30 years ago. He bowed over her hand and kissed it. Grandmary laughed, a little pink in the cheeks. Oh, Archie, I am glad you're here. It doesn't seem like summer until you arrive. The property is a lake house with a lot of little cabins, so Samantha and the twins will have their own cabin. The girls spend weeks swimming and sailing and fishing and picking berries and other outdoorsy things. And one day they climb up on a boulder and see an island in the lake. The twins say they should sail to the island, but Samantha says no. The dangerous rocks are hidden underwater. You can't see them, but they can still rip out the bottom of your boat, said Samantha. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, That's where my mother and father drowned. There was a storm, and their boat was wrecked on the rocks. They were on their way back from Teardrop Island. Parent Drowning Island is not where I thought this book was going. That night, the girls sleep out under the stars, and Samantha tells the twins that every year, Admiral Archibald Bemis proposes to Grandmary, and she always says no, even though she likes him. The next day, there's a summer storm. Apparently the weather can change very quickly, so the girls have to do indoor activities, pressing flowers, embroidering, puzzles, card games, and painting on the porch. Then the girls go up to the attic to look for more paintbrushes, and they find a bunch of accessories like hats and jewelry. And there's also photo albums and a sketchbook from Samantha's mother. She did a bunch of paintings of Teardrop Island. They show Samantha and her parents enjoying a beautiful island. Samantha doesn't remember being there at all, so now she wants to visit the island to see if it brings back any memories. The next day, the girls set out without telling anyone where they're going. Always a great plan. They take the canoe and navigate around the rocks. They make it to the island and find all of the places in Samantha's mom's paintings. Then the sky starts to get dark with storm clouds, so they decide it's time to leave. But they didn't secure the canoe properly, so it floated away, and they are now stranded on the island. They're trying to brainstorm what to do as it starts to rain, and then they hear a noise. It's Admiral Archibald Bemis. He came to rescue them, but he hit his head, and when he makes it to the girls, he passes out from his head injury. So the girls help him back to his boat, and then the girls have to sail home through the storm. Samantha thinks, it was probably like this the night my parents drowned. Yeah, girl. One of the reasons this was a bad idea. But with the twins rowing and Samantha navigating, they make it back to the camp. Uncle Guard throws them a rope and pulls them in, and a doctor takes care of Admiral Archibald Bemis. Can you tell I like saying that? I mean, it's no jicky, but it's pretty fun. The doctor says it was good that the girls got him home so quickly. Samantha explains to Grandmary that she found her mother's sketchbook, and that made her want to see the island. She says it's beautiful, and she'd like to go back sometime. She looked up at Grandmary. Maybe you'd like to come with me sometime. Perhaps I will, Grandmary said softly. Perhaps I will. The end. The looking back section talks about the outdoors, summer homes, conservation efforts, and national parks. For the doll, there was a sailor-inspired midi dress, a basket with a butterfly net, a paint set, a flower press, an embroidered pillow, a magnifying glass, and Samantha's mother's sketchbook. I liked this book. It had a cool vibe. It had that kids out alone in the wilderness feeling that a lot of the Boxcar Children books do. I think kids like imagining going on an adventure, finding a bunch of old relics in a spooky attic. It was weird that the premise was Samantha experiencing the circumstances of her parents' tragic demise. Little odd, but I guess I was fine with it. The last book in Samantha's central series is Changes for Samantha, written by Valerie Tripp. It's winter-themed and had a tie-in winter collection for the doll. The book opens with Samantha living with Uncle Gard and Cornelia in New York. Off-screen, Grandmary got married to Admiral Archibald Bemis, and they are currently on a yacht in Greece. We don't get to hear why Grandmary changed her mind. I'm assuming it's because he almost died, and then she was like, I've realized I don't want to live without you. It wouldn't be summer again without you. I'm assuming that's what happened. We never find out. So Samantha is now living in New York. She and Cornelia are making Valentines when Samantha gets a letter in the mail. It's a letter from Nellie. Her mom and dad have died of the flu, so now she and her sisters are coming to New York to live with their uncle, Mike O'Malley. Have I said her last name is O'Malley? And Nellie promises to come visit Samantha. But Nellie doesn't come visit, and she doesn't send another letter. Samantha is worried, so Uncle Gard calls Mrs. Van Sicklen, the woman Nellie's family worked for back in Mount Bedford. And Mrs. Van Sicklen says that she sent the girls on a train 2 weeks ago. She doesn't know where Mike O'Malley lives, but thinks somewhere around 17th or 18th Street by the river. Uncle Gard and Cornelia says that it will be too hard to find the girls, so they'll just have to wait. Samantha, of course, does not want to wait. So the next day she goes out on her own to 17th Street to ask around. And it's a crowded, poor community. She asks a man selling chestnuts. Sure, and there are many, many O'Malleys, miss. Which one would you be wantin'? Mr. Mike O'Malley, says Samantha. He lives on 17th or 18th Street. The grin vanished from the man's face like a light blown out by a cold wind. And what would a young missy such as yourself be wanting with a hooligan like Mike O'Malley? He asked. Samantha says she's looking for her friend Nellie, so the man gives her Mike's address. She goes there, and a neighbor woman is there, and she says, he's not here, I'm happy to say. Samantha explains that she's looking for Nellie, and the woman softens and invites her in. There are 6 children at the table working, making paper flowers. The woman explains that Mike O'Malley is a drunk and took the O'Malley girls' money and possessions and skipped town. This woman took the girls in, but it was too crowded and Nellie felt bad taking their food, so the woman took them to an orphanage. The next day, Samantha tells Uncle Gard and Cornelia that she knows where the O'Malley girls are. They aren't happy that Samantha went alone to a dangerous part of the city, but Cornelia says they'll visit the orphanage that afternoon. They go to the orphanage and tell the directress, Mrs. Frauchi, that they want to visit Nellie. It takes some convincing, but Mrs. Frauchi brings Nellie in. Nellie is happy to see them, but she looks thin and sad. Mrs. Frauchi keeps talking about obedience and won't let Samantha give Nellie any gifts. Cornelia distracts Mrs. Frauchi by asking for a tour so Samantha and Nellie can talk alone. Samantha says the girls should run away and stay with her, but Nellie says no because she doesn't want to get in trouble. The most important thing is that she and her sisters aren't separated. Samantha, Gard, and Cornelia can only visit on Sundays for an hour, but Nellie says that at 4 p.m. she takes the ashes out to the trash. It's 4 p.m. right this moment as I'm filming. That's crazy. So Samantha meets her outside and talks to her secretly every day. She gives Nellie her gloves because Nellie's hands are cold, but Mrs. Frauchi takes them away and Nellie is punished with no dinner. Then, one day, Nellie says that she was picked to go on the orphan train. Orphan trains took orphans, or just poor children, out west to farm towns. Then people would choose orphans to come and work for them as farm labor. Nellie's sisters, Bridget and Jenny, are too young, so they will be left behind. So Nellie finally agrees to run away with Samantha and live in her attic. It's not a very practical plan, Nellie said. It won't work for long, but it's our only choice. The next day, the girls sneak out and Samantha bundles them in cloaks to disguise them. They climb through the basement window and climb up to the attic. Samantha has filled it with books, toys, and blankets. The next few days, Samantha struggles to smuggle the girls food. The grumpy maid Gertrude doesn't like wasting food and is suspicious of Samantha. Then, on the fourth day, Gertrude busts in on the girls and takes them down to Guard Cornelia. Samantha explains that she was trying to stop the girls from being separated, and Guard and Cornelia decide to adopt the girls. The end. The looking back section describes changes in America. And for the doll, there was a plaid cape, a hat and muff, undergarments, a black Fillets bag, ice skates, and paper dolls. I think these books are perfectly good for what they are. Slice of life, grounded in reality, historical fiction for kids. Which is so not what I was into as a kid. Still not really what I'm into now. I wanted magic and time travel and spies and super geniuses and fairies. Not, oh no, the dog ran away. So it makes sense to me that I didn't read these books as a kid. I probably read one and I was like, sorry if that makes you mad at me. But these books did a good job making Samantha a likable character. She's kind and has a strong sense of right and wrong, and she's a little feisty. The main problem with Samantha is that she's not the most interesting character in her own stories. Like, Nellie is way more interesting, right? But it makes sense that Samantha is the main character. She's a white, privileged girl learning about injustices, which I think is a very relatable perspective for the type of girl who would be getting a Samantha doll. It's a good entry point into the world, even though I think Nellie would be a more interesting character to base a book around. Really, I think Cornelia or Jessie the seamstress would be more interesting. But these are kids' books, so that would be deviating too much for the premise. Then some other things. In 1990, American Girl released school desks, so Samantha got a desk to go with her school collection. Then there's quite a bit of craft stuff. There's a craft book with a lot of instructions for crafts. There were craft kits, an embroidery sampler kit so you could make her actions speak louder than words, and a Victorian Valentine's kit. There were also patterns so you can sew Samantha's clothes, which they're patterns for the clothes she already has. So if you're a hardcore Samantha collector and you already have all of her clothes, then this is, I guess, an opportunity to make worse handmade versions. But it is cool for a doll brand to be like, here's the patterns to make our products, have at it. So nowadays, if you want some of Samantha's outfits and you don't want to buy them on the secondhand market, because they can get quite expensive, you could get the patterns and make them yourself. And then there's labor and fabric costs and pattern costs. I don't know if it's worth it, but you could. There's also a cookbook, so you could make recipes from the 1900s. The book does include gingerbread, which I think of as the Samantha food. And I know Darling Dolls did a video making some of the recipes from the American Girl cookbooks. Then in 2004, we got a Samantha movie, Samantha, an American Girl Holiday.
Now, your first look at an upcoming WB holiday event. At last, a beloved character from American Girl comes to life. Samantha, an American Girl Holiday.
I would argue that the level of holiday in this movie is minimal. You know that joke that Die Hard is technically a Christmas movie? That's how I feel about Samantha, an American Girl Holiday. Like, technically, the final scene takes place at Christmas, so I guess. The movie premiered on the WB channel and then got a DVD release. The first thing I'll say is that this movie is slow. Hallmark movies are like this too, where the conversations always have too many beats of silence. There's shots of characters walking for too long. It feels like they're trying to hit a certain runtime, which, since it was a TV movie, maybe they were. We open with Samantha, played by Anna Sophia Robb, and Eddie Ryland. Then, Nellie and her family arrive at the Rylands. In the movie, her whole family comes and her mom is already dead. They have some very subtle dialogue about being poor and hungry.
And I know you're hungry, Jenny, but you'll just have to wait.
Then Eddie uses a comical slingshot to try and frame Nellie for breaking a window. This kid is giving it his all. He kind of reminds me of the kid from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Just an evil little boy. And he tries to extort her for a penny. But Samantha stands up to him. Mia Farrow is playing Grandmary, and she's kind of too smiley for my taste.
Then I'm sure you will have no interest in that package that's addressed to you.
Samantha befriends Nellie and starts to teach her to read.
My parents are gone. like your mother, only in an accident on the river. Both of them? That's awful. I keep them close this way. I like that you're here, Nellie. I think we'll be great friends. I've never had a real friend outside the family. Well, you do now, Nellie O'Malley. Friends forever. Forever.
We learn that Nellie's sister, Jenny, hasn't spoken since their mom died. Then Uncle Gard arrives with Cornelia. In the movie, Samantha has never met Cornelia, and she's suspicious of her. Cornelia is played by the Wicked Witch of the West from Once Upon a Time.
I thought you might like this. It's The Wizard of Oz. Girls in New York love it.
Cornelia discusses her suffragist views at dinner, and Uncle Gard says that the two of them are engaged.
I'm happy for you too, Uncle Gard.
Samantha doesn't want things to change, but she has an awkward scene with Uncle Gard where he tells her everything's going to be okay, and to give Cornelia a chance. Cornelia tries to bribe the girls to like her with cake, but then Samantha overhears Uncle Gard and Grandmary. Uncle Gard thinks Samantha should come and stay with him and Cornelia for a few months, share the burden, and Samantha is upset that they want to send her away. She goes to Nellie because she doesn't want to be alone, and they go to the boathouse. No one goes in there after her parents died in a boating accident. Now it's Samantha's hideout with all of her items from her parents. Then she gives Nellie her doll.
I've never seen anything so beautiful.
The next day, Mrs. Ryland is so upset that Nellie doesn't know her place because she trespassed on the neighbor's property and spent time with the neighbor child, even though obviously the neighbors and the neighbor child is fine with it. Then Gard and Grandmary see the inside of the boathouse, and Grandmary agrees to let Samantha stay with Uncle Gard. Then it's time for the wedding. Samantha is going to be the bridesmaid in this hideous dress. And then, while they're getting ready, Cornelia's niece accidentally sets the wedding veil on fire. So Samantha brings Cornelia her mother's veil. At the wedding, we have to hear the very long vows for each of them. Very unintentional Princess Bride moment. Like, they did them for Uncle Gard, and then they started to do them for Cornelia, and I was like, no! I heard it! I'm good! Then, at the reception, Samantha hears some women gossiping that Cornelia has to take in some child. Samantha feels like a burden and very unwanted. Then Samantha moves to New York. The New York streets are giving very much studio backlot, very much a Muppet Christmas Carol. Samantha starts a new school, and there's going to be a speaking contest about progress in America. Cornelia holds a suffragist meeting in their house, and Samantha says she isn't very interested in voting. What Samantha doesn't know is that voting is very important, especially in your local and state elections. Then Samantha gets a letter that Nellie's father has died and the girls are in an orphanage. Uncle Gard finds the orphanage but isn't allowed to visit Nellie. Cornelia says that her suffragist friend donates a lot to orphanages and may be able to help. Then Samantha and Cornelia go to the orphanage and ask for a tour. The orphanage director, Mrs. Frouchy, is evil. Sort of like a Mrs. Trunchbull vibe. The orphanage is depressing looking, and they're acting like they don't know any of the girls there. Samantha is able to quickly talk to Nellie. Nellie says that she isn't allowed to see her sisters, and that she goes outside to empty the ashes at 4. Then Samantha does a prison break. She brings donations to the orphanage and has the O'Malley girls meet her at the coat closet. But then Mrs. Frouchy is coming, so the girls have to hide, and we see that Mrs. Frouchy is embezzling money. Then one of the girls sneezes and they have to run for it. And Mrs. Frouchy says that someone took the girls and the donation money. All of it. Samantha takes the girls up to the attic and gives them food. Mrs. Frouchy comes to Samantha's house and accuses her of stealing, but the maid is having none of it and sends her away. Then Bridget gets sick. Jenny comes and gets Samantha for help because Nellie isn't home. She went to go work in a factory. So Samantha goes to the factory to get Nellie. And the factory is horrible. A boy loses a finger. The way the factory works is there's a line of people waiting for a machine to open up, and you write your name on this sheet, and there's a line I liked, write your name, if you can't write, put an X, because obviously a lot of these people wouldn't have been able to write. And Nellie gives up her spot to come home and take care of Bridget. Then Samantha tells Cornelia and Gard what's going on and asks them for help. They get a doctor for Bridget, but we don't know what's going to happen to the girls once Bridget is better. Then Cornelia's suffragist friend goes to the orphanage and fires Mrs. Frouchy for embezzling and running a bad orphanage. It's time for the speaking contest, and Samantha gives her speech about how factories are bad and dangerous for children, and she is disqualified for giving a speech that she did not submit, but her family all loved it. Then, in the carriage ride home, Guard and Cornelia ask Samantha to live with them permanently, and they tell her that Grandmary and the Admiral got engaged. Samantha asks if the O'Malley girls can come and be maids for them. Then, it's Christmas Eve, and everyone helps prepare donations to the orphanage. Then, on Christmas morning, Guard and Cornelia tell the O'Malley girls that they don't need maids, but Samantha needs sisters. And Jenny says yes.
Yes. Jenny says yes, sir.
That's my girl.
I thought her first words were going to be Merry Christmas, but that works too. Then we get a Christmas sequence of donating things to the orphanage and a sleigh ride. The end. This movie is odd because it's very split down the middle, the Mount Bedford half and the New York half. I think it works pretty well for trying to combine 6 books. It's mostly Meet Samantha and Changes for Samantha, with Samantha Learns a Lesson split in half. The boathouse scene reminds me of the attic in Samantha Saves the Day, and Samantha's distrust of Cornelia reminds me of Samantha's surprise. And there's a short story called Samantha Saves the Wedding, which was added in. That's where we get the veil being ruined. There were some changes I liked, like Samantha not winning the speaking contest, and Cornelia using her connections to get Mrs. Frouchy fired. And I like the costuming, and a lot of the interior locations looked really authentic. If you want to watch it, I say put it on 1.5 speed, and that'll help. The kids still can't act, though. As a tie-in to the movie, they released a Nellie doll. She is the first best friend doll, so a historical character's friend who gets her own doll and a small collection. The Nellie doll has light skin and the Josefina face mold. We haven't really talked about face molds, but American Girl dolls can have one of a couple different faces. The first 4 dolls all had the same face, which is informally called the classic face. But when American Girl released Addie, who is a black character, they were like, she needs to have a face that has more black features. Then when they released Josefina, who's a Latina character, she got her own face mold too. It is the official position of the American Girl Company that none of the face molds are tied to a specific ethnicity. So even though the Josefina face was first used for a Latina character, the face itself is not Latina. It is completely ethnically neutral. This is, I think, for 2 reasons. Reason 1 is the Truly Me line. American Girl has a product line called Truly Me. It's had different names over the years, but that's what it's called right now. The line is a bunch of dolls who don't have names or books or backstories. They are blank slates for a child to pick out. And the way the line is pitched is for girls to pick a doll who looks like them. So if they said that specific faces had specific ethnicities, then that limits what dolls kids could project themselves onto. The second reason is that if the faces don't have an ethnicity, then the brand can reuse the faces for whatever characters they want. Fine. However, for me, I strongly associate the different face sculpts with different ethnicities. Like, the 2025 Girl of the Year doll is a white character, but she has the Nenea face. Nenea is a historical character who is living in Hawaii during World War II. She is Hawaiian, so Pacific Islander, and she got her own face mold. But now, the 2025 Girl of the Year has that face too, but she's white with blonde hair and blue eyes. I look at her and see an Asian Pacific Islander character, because that's what I associate the Nenea mold with. So when there are white dolls with the Josefina mold, it just looks a little odd to me. I think they gave Nellie the Josefina mold because then she and Samantha wouldn't look the same, but I think they could have just used the classic mold. I don't think it matters if they look the same. I mean, when Molly got her best friend Emily, they both had classic faces. Anyways, Nellie has freckles, a strawberry blonde bob, and blue eyes. Her meet dress was a white dress with a blue sash and a blue hair bow. And she came with the book Nellie's Promise, written by Valerie Tripp. The book begins after the events of Changes for Samantha. So at this point, Nellie and her sisters are living with Samantha. Nellie remembers a promise that she made to her mother to always take care of her sisters. While she's walking home one day, she runs into her uncle Mike O'Malley. He wants to take the girls back. I've every right to do that, you know. I'll put the three of you to work in the factory so that you can bring your wages home to me. I'm your uncle. You belong to me. Nellie stamps on his foot and runs home. She decides not to tell anyone about what happened because she doesn't want them to worry. Back at the house, Bridget and Jenny have adjusted well to being part of a wealthy family, but Nellie is struggling. She's used to having to work and be useful. She doesn't fit in at Samantha's fancy school either. Samantha suggests that if Nellie wants to be useful, she could show Aunt Cornelia a settlement house. At a settlement house, volunteer middle-class people would teach classes and offer services to help poor people and immigrants. And Aunt Cornelia wants to volunteer at one. Nellie loved the settlement house she used to go to, and she wants to see the woman who runs it, Miss Brennan, and ask her for advice. Nellie is worried that Uncle Mike will take them away, and she wants skills to help her find a good job so she could take care of her sisters. Samantha, Cornelia, and Nellie walk to the settlement house, but Nellie thinks she sees her Uncle Mike, so she takes a back way. They make it to the settlement house and see Miss Brennan. She calls Nellie O'Malley All Mended because she's good at fixing things. They go to the kindergarten room and Samantha stays to tell the kids a story, even though she seems hesitant. Then Cornelia helps with a cooking class by washing pots and pans. The German and Italian women taking the class keep trying to give her samples of the food, and Nellie helps translate. Then they take a cab home. Cornelia wants to volunteer there once a week, but Samantha seems upset. That night, Nellie tries to ask Samantha why she was upset, but Samantha doesn't want to talk about it. Nellie is upset that there seems to be a wedge in their friendship. On Saturday, Uncle Guard takes the girls for a ride in his motor car, but the car won't start. Nellie's father was a driver, and she spent a lot of time with him, so she offers to take a look at the car. So Samantha takes Jenny and Bridget inside to play. Nellie feels bad because it seems like her sisters like Samantha more than her. Cornelia and Nellie have been going to the settlement house twice a week, and one day Miss Brennan invites Nellie for a cup of tea. Nellie asks how Miss Brennan got her job and whether she had to train for it, and Miss Brennan tells her about the boarding school in Boston where she trained to be a teacher. Then Nellie tells her about the Uncle Mike situation. And Miss Brennan says he was here the other day asking about the girls. I didn't tell him anything about you and your sisters, of course. I wouldn't give a hooligan like that the time of day. Miss Brennan says Nellie needs to tell Guard and Cornelia so they can help. That night, Nellie writes a letter to the boarding school in Boston asking if she can apply. A week later, Uncle Guard gets a letter from the school saying Nellie is welcome to enroll. Guard and Cornelia are shocked that Nellie wants to go away to Boston, and Nellie says she thinks it would be better if she left. And it turns out Samantha was in the doorway and heard everything, and Samantha runs upstairs. Cornelia sends Nellie to go talk things out with Samantha. Samantha says the settlement house made her sad because there's so many children she can't help, and she hates to think of Nellie and her sisters struggling. She also says that she's spending so much time with Bridget and Jenny because she loves having sisters, and she wanted to give Nellie time alone with Guard and Cornelia. Then Nellie explains the Uncle Mike situation. Samantha says they need to tell Guard and Cornelia. But the next day, Uncle Mike is in the parlor. It turns out that Guard and Cornelia hired a detective to track him down so that he could sign papers giving up his rights to the girls. At first, he tries to get money in exchange for signing the papers. After all, the girls are the children of my dear late brother, and it would be a loss to me to not see them anymore. Of course, rich folks like you could pay me to sign. How much are Nellie girl and her sisters worth to you? How dare you, sir, said Uncle Guard. And then Nellie's like, you should just sign the papers, or I'll tell a judge that you left us to freeze in January. So he signs it and leaves. Then Samantha's like, now you don't have to go to Boston to hide from your uncle. And Nellie's like, well, that's only part of the reason. I also wanted to go to school to be a teacher so I could get a good job. And Guard and Cornelia are like, that makes sense. Let's find you a school that's closer to home. They find Nellie a school, the girls are officially adopted, everything is great. The end. Then the looking back section was about adoption. I liked this book. I don't know if it was because it was about Nellie, who I think is an interesting character, or because this book was longer than the usual books, so more happened in it. Then Nellie had a small collection that was mostly a movie tie-in collection. Nellie had meat accessories, which included a white straw hat, a blue purse, a handkerchief, an Irish penny, and a cross necklace. A cross? A cross from where? She got a black and white plaid holiday dress, and her doll Lydia. She got lilac satin pajamas, a light pink spring party dress, and a holiday coat. Samantha also got a holiday coat. and there was a horse-drawn sleigh that the two of them could ride in. And Samantha also got her hideous bridesmaid dress. Then there were a few other things in Samantha's collection. She had some mystery novels, which I might have liked more than the normal books because I like mysteries, but I just couldn't read anymore. Then there were some Samantha short stories, which were published in the American Girl magazine, and some short story collections. There were 2 outfits based on short stories, the skating party dress and the talent show dress. Let's do sort of a flyover of her other outfits. The play dress and pinafore, which for some reason, I think this dress always looks so poofy. It must just have a lot of fabric. Her tea dress, Samantha's 1904 bathing dress, which was released in 1997 as a limited edition outfit, but then brought back in 2005. A travel duster and hat, which is associated with the scrapbook Samantha's Ocean Liner Adventure. The lawn party outfit, which has a goofy little hat. The spring party dress, which I think is her ugliest look. Samantha's bicycling outfit, gorgeous. Samantha's bird watching outfit, which is just a coat and accessories that have to go over another outfit. Samantha's velvet dress, which, a hot take, I think this is better than her holiday outfit. Then she also had a 3-wheeled bicycle and Jip the dog. American Girl loves making pets for their dolls. So as you can see, she got a lot of fun items over the years. I am not qualified to say whether these outfits look authentically 1904, but Lady Rebecca here on YouTube has a great video talking about the historical accuracy of Samantha's outfits. Then, in 2008, Samantha's collection was retired, which means that she was discontinued and no longer available for purchase. And she was unavailable for many years until she was brought back in 2014 when American Girl rebranded the historical character line to Beforever. We can't get too into Beforever. You can watch my History of American Girl video. I talk about it in there. Basically, the historical characters all got new outfits that were more colorful and modern, and the historical characters' books were reworked. So Samantha was brought out of retirement. Not Nellie, though. American Girl got rid of the best friends line, so Nellie isn't coming back. Samantha got a new meet outfit. It's this pink ruffly dress with a burgundy ribbon and hair bow. So this is what I was talking about, where the historical outfits were modernized. Like, this is just a modern dress. It's cute, but it's not 1904. Let's look at her other Beforever outfits. Samantha's frilly frock, a pink drop waist dress with metallic lavender accents. Disregarding the fact that this is supposed to be an outfit from 1904, it's just ugly. Samantha's bicycling outfit. Why does she have a hippie peasant blouse? Samantha's fancy coat set. Samantha's nightgown, not very historical, but very cute. Samantha's holiday set, which I think is fine, actually. Samantha's flower picking set. Why does the mock neck look so bad? Samantha's special day dress. The trim and the pattern of the dress reminds me of an old lady house dress. Samantha's travel coat and hat. This I like. It makes the dress look way better by covering it. So those are the outfits, which I think are overall worse than before. Then there's some accessories and stuff. Let's look at just a few of them. Her new meet accessories include a heart necklace, a flower headband, and a burgundy purse. There's an ice cream parlor playset, which I think is actually adorable. She has a new bed, which is not dissimilar to my actual bed, so obviously I like it. There's a gazebo playset, which looks a little bit lame. And she has a bicycle that looks very twee, very Zooey Deschanel. I feel like modern American Girl often does accessories better than clothes. Then for the Beforever books. Each of the historical characters' 6 main books were combined into 2 books. So Samantha's first 3 books were combined into a book called Manners and Mischief, and books 4 through 6 were combined into a book called Lost and Found. So instead of Meet Samantha, the Samantha doll would come with Manners and Mischief. These Beforever books were meant to be more like long chapter books. The illustrations were taken out, and there was some text added to transition between the original book breaks. So they were going for an older audience with no pictures and longer books, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a bummer to lose the illustrations. They're very iconic. The original books had this almost scrapbook quality, with not just the big illustrations, but a bunch of little ones too. And then, even more of a travesty, the Beforever books dramatically reduced the looking back section. The looking back section was the historical context in the back of the books. Originally, each book would have multiple pages worth, but in the Beforever books, they only have 2 pages worth, with no pictures or illustrations. Which I was team more historical context. Give me footnotes, an annotated bibliography, a reading list. So it's sad that there's barely any. I'm sure they did like market research and found that little girls don't like nonfiction history textbook facts. But I, a nerdy adult, am still going to complain about it. Then in 2017, Samantha was cubed. This is a collector term for when a doll isn't retired, but their collection is drastically reduced. It's called being cubed because at the American Girl stores, the doll is moved to a smaller cube display, where just the doll is on display because she doesn't have anything else available for purchase anymore. So no more outfits or accessories or furniture. I think her bed and nightgown were available for a little while longer, but then they became unavailable as well. I think it's probably better PR to cube a character instead of retiring them. If American Girl did an announcement like, "We're getting rid of Samantha," that would be news, and a lot of people would be unhappy about it. But if instead they quietly let her items sell out and don't restock them and keep the doll and her books around, you can still technically buy her and she's still a part of the lineup, most people aren't going to notice that. So for the past 7 years, it's just been the doll and her books. But they're not going to get rid of her because she's Samantha and she's iconic to the brand. In 2019, American Girl dropped the Beforever branding. This was mostly just a branding change. It's not like they went back to the pre-Beforever historical outfits. But the one thing that did change was the books. American Girl made new versions of the Beforever books. So before, the Beforever books were 2 volumes, each containing 3 of the original books. The text was barely changed, no illustrations, and a drastically reduced looking back section. With these 2019 books, the 2 volumes contained abridged versions of the original books and were much more edited. So for Samantha, Volume 1 is now called The Gift. It contains Meet Samantha, Samantha Learns a Lesson, and the short stories Samantha's Blue Bicycle and Samantha Saves the Wedding. The text has been rewritten to weave these all together, removing certain subplots and characters, and replacing things with new content. Like, for example, the plot about Jessie the seamstress leaving has been removed. The Ryland family has been removed. Instead of falling out of a tree, Samantha goes to Jessie after practicing bike riding. Just a million big changes and little changes. The second volume is still called Lost and Found, just to be a little bit confusing, and seems to have had more minor changes. I'm imagining some kind of Mandela effect gaslighting conversation where an adult who read the original Samantha books is talking to a kid today, like, "Oh, I loved those books when I was little. I remember when Samantha made a school for Nellie. Yeah. Ugh, and that Eddie Ryland kid, he was a brat." Who? That's my child impression. However, 2 fun changes. The abridged books have the illustrations put back in, not all of them, but several, and the looking back section has been expanded and has images added back in. So that's cool. In 2021, for American Girl's 35th anniversary, they did a limited release of the first 6 historical characters in their original Meet outfits. These dolls came in a special older style box with their original Meet accessories and a reprinted first edition Meet book. They were released in May, and by November, Samantha had sold out. Right now, on the American Girl website, you can buy a lot of the older characters in the original Meet outfits, but notably not Samantha. You could argue it was supposed to be a limited edition thing and not available all the time, but right now you can get Addie, Kirsten, Molly, Josefina, and Kit in their original Meet outfits. I think they might be planning on doing something nostalgic in 2026 when the brand turns 40, so maybe Samantha's original Meet outfit will make a comeback then. For a few of the characters, they've re-released one of their old outfits too. Like, you can get Molly's birthday outfit. So that would be cool to re-release some of Samantha's outfits. Because when you look at her page on the website right now, it's Beforever Dress Samantha, a mini doll, her books, and nostalgic stuff for adults, like a coffee tumbler and stickers. The historical line as a whole is sort of in a weird place right now. They're cubing dolls instead of retiring them. So right now there's some girls who don't have a lot of stuff. They've been shifting focus to the modern line for years now. I think that's what kids are into. That makes money. And I don't fault them for doing that. But it is weird looking on the website and seeing zombie Samantha back from the dead, but not quite alive. I hope American Girl feeds her some brains in the form of new items. That metaphor got away from me. So, am I happy that I bought this doll? I think yes, which is good for me. I had fun doing this, even though I postponed this video several times because I kept reading the books and going, these are boring. What funny things can I say about this? Sorry. I like the idea of talking about more of the historical girls. I would probably want to go in chronological order of release, so either Molly or Kirsten. I'm trying not to give the impression that I'm committing to doing all of them. That feels like Sufjan Stevens saying he's going to make an album for each of the 50 states and then doing 2 of them. But you know, we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on all social media, even if I don't post much. And I don't know how to end a YouTube video. So,